Hi, thank you so much for joining me for today's talk called Ransom Proof, using the NIST cybersecurity framework to secure critical data. My name is Jeff Reichard. I work at Veeam Government Solutions in the office of the CTO on the product strategy team. I've spent a long time helping federal customers with data security and data backup solutions. And that requirement's in the news a lot these days because of the prevalence of ransomware attacks that we're seeing, especially against government customers. Now, I think that most of you watching today are familiar with the NIST cybersecurity framework, but just in case, this is a security framework that's been out for several years now. It was come up with by NIST in the Department of Commerce, and it was the result of a pretty extensive collaboration between both federal actors, federal public sector security experts, and private sector security experts. The goal was to make a framework that could be easily understood, even by non-technical line of business or mission decision makers, and that would help an organization iteratively go through, identify their risks, and then protect those assets that were at risk, detect an adversary's attack, and then respond to and recover from that attack. And again, the framework is meant to be iterative, so you can secure your most critical data or your most pressing vulnerabilities first, and then move on and on to fully secure your environment. Now, at Veeam, we have capabilities that plug into all of these areas: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. But I'm going to be talking today just about two areas, and those are specifically the protect area of the NIST cybersecurity framework and the recovery section. I'm going to be doing that in part because Gartner had a pretty widely read paper that they put out in September of this year called How to Protect Backup Systems from Ransomware Attacks. That was just in September on the 21st, a couple of months ago. Gartner identifies a number of things that happen, and this graphic is really helpful because what it shows is the escalation in possible damage over time of a ransomware actor being on your network. There are two things that are going on. Typically, when an adversary gets on your network, he's going to be on for a period of weeks or even months. During that time, you're going to have backups of your critical data that you need to retain, but that might have malware in them. So you need a way to make sure that when you do go to restore, you can restore your critical data, but not restore malware back into your environment. The other thing that you need to make sure about is that the adversary on the network can't delete your backups, thus making it mandatory for you to pay a ransom if you want to get your mission data back. Gartner points both of these out, and one of the big requirements that they note is that you need some kind of resilient or ultra-resilient storage mechanism for your backup data. Just data that's sitting online, easily accessible on the network, is not going to help if an adversary stays on the network for a prolonged time, escalates privileges, moves laterally, and gains the credentials that he would need to destroy normal, non-resilient backup media. Now, at Veeam, we've solved this problem pretty well. Our customers typically use something called the scaleout backup repository. It is a virtualized pool of backup storage that encompasses a primary tier, very fast restoring, performing for normal restores, and that includes multiple tiers of object storage, either on premises or in the cloud. The interesting thing about this is that all of these tiers of storage can be made immutable. They can be made invulnerable, unchangeable from an adversary for a given length of time, even if that adversary has administrative credentials. And again, this is a key thing that Gartner and others like Veeam point out that you need to do to make sure that your agency or your organization is truly secure against ransomware. The Veeam Scale-Out Backup Repository includes disk. It includes commodity Linux hardware, the hardened Linux repository that we introduced in version 11 of our Veeam Backup and Replication product, as well as the various types of on-prem and up in GovCloud options for object storage, including very inexpensive object storage in archive tiers. So that's point number one, and that's what you can do to make sure that your backups don't get deleted. But what about making sure that an adversary putting malware in your environment, with that malware then included in backups, doesn't have that malware reinstalled when you do your restores and give them an easy route back into your environment or back with the ability to hold your environment hostage. Well, Veeam's secure restore capability, which has been in the product for years, has an easy mechanism for dealing with that. You simply find the backup that you want to recover, and you can mount it and present the backup data as disks to the antivirus solution of your choice. If the antivirus check shows that there is no malware that was inadvertently backed up with the good data that you want to protect, you can go ahead and restore back into production. You also have the option, if malware is discovered, to restore into a contained VMware environment, that is an isolated environment with no network connectivity, so that you can further remediate the damage and make sure that when you do put those assets back on the network, they don't have any malware that's been included. Or you can abort the restore and take some other path to make sure that you don't put that data back into the environment with malware in it. We had a great test of this lately with a large federal systems integrator. They actually stood up our hardened Linux repository and had their red team, that is a part of their security team, mount an attack against it to see if they could use various ways of trying to get admin access to the Linux repository, including changing the time on the repository in order to attempt to fool the timestamp on the immutability that had set a period of 30 days in which that data couldn't be deleted. They failed, and this large systems integrator is now a Veeam customer, and they deploy the Veeam hardened Linux repository for federal customers. You should also be aware that the Veeam solution for ransomware resiliency is recommended in NIST special publication 1800-11, Recovering from Ransomware and Other Destructive Events. Veeam Government Solutions software is TAA compliant. We have over 1,400 active federal customers now, and we have numerous authorities to operate and are included on numerous approved products lists across DoD, civilian, and intel agencies. So we have a pretty good footprint, a pretty good track record working with federal customers to secure your mission critical data against ransomware attacks. If you'd like to know more, I would urge you to take a look at the asset here. This is a recently published white paper by Veeam talking about 7 steps that can be taken to make sure that your backup data is resilient and that you can recover from a ransomware attack when you need to. Now, some of the recommendations in this white paper are a bit Veeam specific, but it is not only specific to Veeam. And you should definitely evaluate whatever solution you have in place in the light of these recommendations to make sure that you're really covering your bases. And if the worst happens, you're in a position to first protect your backup data from being deleted by an adversary, and second, to make sure that you don't reinstall malware back into your environment when it is time to recover. So please check that out. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. Really enjoyed talking with you. And if you'd like to know more, come see us at veeam.gov.com. Thanks.